Hi, I'm Alex, Sioux Valley Diesel, and this is my 2000 4800 International. I forgot to talk about how long I've been into it here. Okay, let's try that again. You try to get mechanics and talking in front of a camera. All right, take 48. All right. Hi, I'm Alex, Sioux Valley Diesel. This is my 2000 International 4800, and I'm gonna be giving you a truck tour.
This truck tour is proudly produced by Tekamo and sponsored by Fortis HD. If you're in the market for some high quality rubber tracks at great prices, check us out, fortishd.com. The more tracks you guys buy, the more Tekamo videos we can produce. Also Tekamo tumblers and jugs, 128 ounce, 30 ounce. Woo! Oh God. Spill proof lids, right? Perfect. Didn't spill a sip of my beer. Whoa. Limited supply of these, limited run. Get them on fortishd.com. Spill proof.
I do all of Sea to Sky. I do Bridge River, but I usually do Whistler, Pemberton. I do logging. I do a lot of truck work. I do civil construction. I go across the board pretty wide for sure. I think I bought this truck at the Christmas 2019. It came out of San Bernardino, California. AT&T body. It had like a bucket on it and a headache rack with a bunch of stuff and this big hydraulic reel loader. Basically had all the components to do telephone service. I took everything off of it pretty much and then welded in the floor and built the cab guard. It's treated me extremely well. I used to have an electronic DT466E. I bought an older 4900. I got a 15-speed transmission from a customer and put that in place of the automatic. I was doing a job, a slogger mechanic that I had looked up to, and he also had a top kick and he had the same size crane, but his body was, he built it himself. We were checking out each other's trucks and walking around with a flashlight, and I was showing him my truck and he looked back at it and he went, yeah, well, f***ing tailor-mades, eh? And I was like, I took it personally. It was like from that moment on, I was like, fine, you know what? I'm getting rid of the tailor-made and I'm building my own truck. Built it over a winter while I had the other service truck. And then once it was ready to work, I sold the other one and it ended up paying for the whole truck and the build. So I was out, clean slate. Now I have the truck that I've always wanted. Open it up, set of verniers back here, 12-inch Mitutoyos. I like the ones with the dial on them. I like them because stroke of the dial there kind of references in your brain. It's clicked with me over the years. Got a couple of sets of these dial ones. I really like them. Gloves always inside, being that this is Canada and we work in the mountains. It's nicer to have dry, warm gloves to put them on. Same with the torch always inside. I learned it from an old logger mechanic. He said, he always keep my torch inside. So I always just keep it here behind the seat. My remote always stays inside. The last thing I want is for this thing to get wet and not work. I actually can't remember what the model of this is, but I retrofitted my crane to remote controls. Probably the best thing I ever did to that thing. A log tape, the PTO controls here. This is just a mechanical cable down to the PTO. I like that because I know that it will never fail, most likely. And if it does, I can always just crawl underneath and put the PTO in manually or take it out manually. So it's a good redundancy. It's just one less thing to have go wrong. Yeah, it's not as nice because I got to physically get in the seat, put the clutch in and pull it up. But it's a small trade-off. This Peterbilt air seat, which I scored off of a customer, it was too worn for them, but perfect for me. You can see custom exhaust, pretty basic, straight piped of course, and then kind of a custom built stack that I built. It's got some good throat to her for sure. Yeah. My buddies are like, oh, you'll get sick of that one day. And I'm like, well, not yet. This truck is almost impossible to fall asleep at the wheel in. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll start with this drawer. This is kind of my first go-to drawer. This is the most business one. Electric tools. Now it's kind of coming into summer. I'll leave batteries on stuff, but wintertime, all the batteries stay inside the cab. Hammer. Second favorite thing on the truck. 8-pound wrist hammer. Everybody makes fun of me for it, but I absolutely love this thing. Packs a good wallop and you can get into a nice tight spot with it. So yeah, it looks totally goofy, but this thing works like a hot damn, man. There's a 1/2-inch torque wrench back there. I haven't gone to the battery powered ones, the tech angles. Again, cold weather. I've used them on other trucks before, and I've had the things been sitting in the cab and we've pulled it out and gone to use it in cold weather and the screen just goes blank. I don't know, I just like to stay with the analog style. Brutus Signature Series, aluminum. Pretty standard to a lot of the other T-handle styles. I really like the T-handle. I've used American Eagle ones in the past, and to me, it seems like the exact same construction, except for these are aluminum. And with this body, the kind of the width and the depth of them are just an odd wampus size. So I had to get these custom built to fit in here, and then they're slightly narrower so I can stack on the side of them. We'll start with the first drawer here. This is kind of just your junk drawer, basic junk drawer. We got some air chucks, a square, crow's feet up there, some testers there, and some knife blades, incandescent test light. I love that thing. I work on a lot of old stuff, so I can use it. But yeah, that's kind of just the stuff that doesn't necessarily have an actual home lives up there. I use this quite a bit actually. I can hook this up to my air line there and then hook another air line up there for when I'm doing split rim tires, so I can stand way back and then check the pressure. Little safety thing. We had to use them at the company I used to work for. Standing way back from those tires for sure. Second drawer here, we have Allens and Torx. These are electrical crimpers here and wire strippers, and then the carbide scrapers, picks. Most of this stuff is Snap-on. Yeah, the Snap-on rep, he does like a day in Squamish, a day in Whistler, and a day in Pemberton, once a week, if you're lucky. And then also up here it sits right here is a 1/2-inch long handle ratchet, the Snap-on one. The drawers being so narrow, it's kind of stashed in different places all around the truck. So, there'll be wrenches here, and then there'll be wrenches over there in another spot, and then there'll be some more wrenches, just basically where anything can fit. Third drawer down, we got ratchets, 3/8, and then smaller 1/2-inch, a 1/4 in there. I hate having to pull like a kit out and put it on the deck and go through it. I'd rather just, go in there, look for something, and it be pretty close. Third drawer down, we have metric wrenches up to 30. There's some stubbies, some ratcheting, and then just regular ones. You can see here, some of these have been modified for whatever. In here, we got standard up to 1 1/8. A few ratcheting ones in there, slack adjuster wrench, and then some of these easy red long ratcheting ones, they're pretty handy. This is the socket drawer, which is like my most used socket. So metric standard, 3/8, 1/2, 1/4s in there too. Grab and go in here. Fifth drawer down, I guess was what it is. So this is all 1-inch. Got them off of like retirees, widows, garage sales or whatever. So some are, you gotta do what you gotta do. It was for something I needed. Like a lot of times you'll break the 1 to 3/4, these reducers here, or the 3/4 to 1/2. So I just save the big end, and they're really good for welding onto make your own socket. I'd like to add that these are also seal drivers. Everybody can get on board with the whole these are seal drivers things. You can even see like some of them have been turned down. This one's actually been hacked off to get extra short for some reason somewhere. See, this one's been spun down on the lathe to be special seal driver. You know, it seems like a lot of effort, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. This is this drawer. You know, you got some miscellaneous things sitting on the bottom, some drifts. An old pin is always a drift. I don't think I've ever bought a drift. I got these LEDs here, which kind of serve a dual purpose. They light up the top pretty good. They light up the drawers, and I keep the drawers with nothing on the bottom, just the shiny aluminum on the bottom, so it actually reflects pretty good, and it reflects off the sides, and it lights everything up too. Plus they come out this way, and they actually can light up to about, you know, just over there, pretty good. So, you know, we'll work at night and after everybody's gone to work, and it's just always good to have. I'm a big headlamp guy too, so I have love-hate for Milwaukee, especially the drills. They have horrible trucks. They've had horrible trucks since they started. They still do. But I'm so invested in Milwaukee batteries and tools now that it would be really hard for me to change. Honestly, show me something better, I guess. So here, the Impact 3/8. I actually just bought this thing. I really like it. Works pretty damn good. 3/8 gun. This one's just like the one you can swap in different bits and whatever into the end of it. It's good for a 3/8 gun. Then you can pretend to be a carpenter on the weekend. And then the 1/2 inch. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I needed to tape up the back where the cooling fins out, because I'm sure lots of people have this problem. These cooling fins break while you're using it and spit out at your face at like 1,000,000,000 kilometers an hour. You know, we're always all wearing glasses, so yeah, it shouldn't actually be a problem. That's the business drawer. Some magnetic trays up there and some parts bags over there. So usually what I'll do is I'll show up. This drawer gets opened, or this cabinet gets opened, and up here, inverter, 4,000 watt inverter. So here we have, you know, several pump and sprays with WD-40. Those two are brake clean. I like to keep a lot of brake clean. I like to use it not sparingly. So I like to have a lot of it. And then another set of those lights there. On the side, we have a small snipe. One of these Carpenter blue bars, which are, actually these things are pretty kick-ass for what we do. Chisel this way. I guess it's a chisel this way. It's a pry bar. It's a heel bar. Pry bar that way. I don't know, man. These things, like, if you ever done any carpentry, like, this is the most kick-ass bar. Actually, the size above this is the most kick-ass bar, but these blue bars are awesome. And I figured, why don't we use them too, you know? This one's been notched out for, I don't know, prying something. Modified. Oh, yeah, soap. Soap for thinking that you're going to wash your hands. Usually I use it for, I don't know, different types of seals, I guess, that maybe you don't want to put oil on. You know, not all coolant seals want to have oil on them. Sometimes use soap, but yeah, I wash my hands with this. And you know, it's good for checking leaks. And I used to keep Johnson's baby shampoo in here. What you can do with the baby shampoo is if you get something in your eyes, you can just hammer the shit in there. No tears, right? It doesn't like make your eyes sting. So you can, like, you know, say you get brake clean in your eyes or a battery explodes in your face or whatever has happened. You can just hammer your face out with this baby shampoo and it doesn't sting your eyes. Hood prop, clutch prop, if you're doing clutch adjustments by yourself, I guess. Anything prop, really. Back here we got a square. A square with the radius out on the end, up against welds and stuff like that. Basic consumables, Lubriplate 105. I use this stuff all the time. Yeah, that's just like a grab and go consumable bin right there. I used to have, on my old service truck, I had like quite wide doors and I had big long drawer packs and a lot more storage. And then when I moved into this truck, I really had to cut the fat. So you kind of figure out, okay, what was I not using? This truck is a lot less, it's a lot less stuff because I have a lot less space. But it's kind of just, over the years, I've realize what I need, what I absolutely need, and what I kind of don't need. First drawer, big snap ring pliers, Deutz crimper in there. These airline tools from Snap-on, which are really good when they work. They're actually really good when they work, but they're kind of goofy. But you know, a lot of times you're like, that didn't work. But sometimes you're like, yeah, that thing worked really awesome, you know, underneath a cab or whatever. Battery post cleanup tools in there, just like the wire brushes, whatever you call these things, these little pin or electrical cleaners. They're rough, so you can clean out electrical pins and whatnot. Terminal cleaners, that's what they are, diamond grip terminal cleaners. There we go. Says it right on the thing. And then this side is like back probes, torch tips. The worst thing that can happen to you is you burn through all your tips in one day, which I'm not a welder, so I'm not a good welder. It's nice to have a lot of tips. This drawer is all mod wrenches, as I call it. I am not one of those guys that buys specialty wrenches like 4-way angles. Maybe one day I'll get over it and I'll buy some 4-way angles. Until then, they're getting the axe, you know. They're getting bent up, you know. I don't even know what that was from, but it needed to be like this, and then it needed to be torched off on the corner too for some strange reason. I'll cut up a Snap-on wrench, you know. These things don't have any feelings, so sometimes it's better. I learned from another old logger mechanic. He goes, "You're gonna bend up a wrench, bend up a Snap-on, because it's the only one that'll stay bent, not break on you." That okay? Then he was a Snap-on dealer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do have these skinny guys. These are from Tiger Cat. I had a buddy that worked at, he worked at a dealership. So he got me these for price I could not refuse. They're all right. You know, they're skinny and they kind of spread sometimes, but they are really handy, and you know, you can put a snipe on the end of them. So until they spread, I guess. This is all pliers. Over the years, found what I was using and what I wasn't using. I got a bunch of these Snap-on snap ring pliers, and they always rattle apart, and I always have to go fishing for the little screw in the bottom, which I guess is just something you got to do if you are bouncing around on dirt roads. They're nice pliers, but that's kind of irritating to have to, they're always falling apart. In here, hammers, or at least some hammers. There's a brass hammer in here, beating your boring bar around when your bearings get tight for some reason, and you're already angry enough that your bearings got tight. Now you got to beat it around, and just best to beat it around with the brass instead of beating it around with the steel, as then you make yourself more angry. Yeah, that's pretty much what this is. Just some hammers, a dead blow. Yeah, I don't buy like too many tailor-made hammers. Wrench extender in here. I've been looking at these things for years from FortisHD.com, and it's better than cutting the box end or cutting one end off the wrench and putting a snipe on it. In here we have, oh, look at that. We got 3/4 sockets, 3/4 extensions. Same thing. A lot of these I've got from retirees, widows. Some of them are brand new. Some of them are Snap-on, air hammer, bunch of different die grinders. Try not to like change the ends on them too much. So one will be carbide, one will have a flapper disc, wire wheel, and so on and so forth. 1/2-inch gun. I can't say I use this thing too often anymore because I use the battery powered one. It's just as good, really. And then an air gun, and then there's some nozzles, rubber nozzles laying down there too. I don't know how many of these things I've gone through over the years. In here, we have wrenches, well, another hammer, which I guess live in there. It's probably why it lives in here. There's some more modified wrenches in here, but this is, I'm not sure what the size. There's 1.5 inches in there. A pipe wrench. Well, you guys will like this one. This was made for some reason. It worked, and I kept it around. And then there's some big, you know, things like this, and some big crow's feet in the bottom. I think they go up to 2-inch or maybe 2.25. The pipe wrench is, yes, custom, and you can see here, well, it's shaved down so you can put a snipe on it. And it also has a hole in the end of it so you can put a shackle on it and use the sky wrench. Over the years, I'm sure it's been bent this way, it's been bent back that way, it's been bent this way, and it's bent that way. And just right now, it's like there. But I've had this pipe wrench for years. I've had this pipe wrench since I was an apprentice, and it's always been abused. It's still kick-ass. We have the tools to straighten that out if need be. Oh, here we got some marlin spikes, a couple of heel bars, nut rounder. This thing usually stays on the top. I've had this thing for a long time too. I think I pulled it out of a bucket in the back of a grader and cleaned it up, and I've had that thing for probably over a decade. What we got in the bottom? All kind of things to do services. Lots of filter wrenches down there. And then formafunnels. I love formafunnels. There's a couple of hub sockets in here. Pullers. And then you know, a socket welded to a socket. Somewhere I needed a really deep 4-inch hub socket. So, you know, there you go. Yeah, if I never need this one again, I guess I'll just cut the welds off, and I kept the drive there so I can weld that back on. That's it for the kind of business stuff that gets used. This drawer, always open. This is the stuff that gets used the most. In here, we have O-rings. There's a reason why I have the cat ones, like important things. We'll always get the cat ones. If I take an O-ring face hose off, I'll always just put a new O-ring on because I hate that call. Oh, the hose is leaking now. So I always chuck a new O-ring on there. So if it's important, and you know, everything's important, but more important things that you really do not want to leak right now, or that maybe have a higher duty cycle, higher demand, they'll get Caterpillar. And then kind of smaller duty things will get the Lordco ones. I don't know if there's any difference in quality, but I mean, it's Caterpillar, right? So it's got to be better. Extractors, snap-on. These ones, we got a lot of rust in there. In here, some torque wrenches. There's a 3/8 foot-pounds dial one. And then there's a 3/8 click type, and then a 1/4 inch-pounds dial one in there too. Torx and Allen set. Pressure tester, cooling system pressure tester, vacuum filler. These Lang snap ring pliers here. The ones with the T handle and then a bunch of different ends. If we were to go through there, there's probably some custom modified ends to go in there too. So in here, this is a beware as contents have most likely shifted drawer. I can already hear it. So here we keep spill pads. Usually I keep them on the passenger seat, and if I stack enough stuff high, then I could put a set of coveralls over flat, and the dog can have a nice bed. A bunch of test leads. You can put a set of leads on the battery. You can put a set of leads on the starter, and then they go into another end that go into your meter, and you can switch between them quickly, what your source voltage is, and then what you're dropping across the starter. And then a bunch of other kind of random breakout harnesses that I've made over the years. I usually got 2 of these 20-ton air jacks in here. And then back here's a 60-ton hollow cylinder, and then a 20-ton short jack in there. Here's the air pump, and then a porta power taps. So small sizes, metric and standard. This is all airlines, truck airlines in there. Here we have Wesley Snipes, the big snap-on pry bar. Had this thing for years. I love it. It's awesome. You know, rock bar has its place. This thing has its place. What else we got? Long indexing pry bar. This one's a snap-on. I probably broke it 20 times over the years, but you know, snap-on, right? Another Marlin spike. See, we're getting on the program of there's shit stashed everywhere in this truck, you know? Marlin spikes were in there. They're also in here. This Easy Red 3/4 extendable ratchet. I mean, I put a date on it. It says 02/02/16. I had this thing for a long time. These heads blow apart, but this is, you know, it's off the snap-on truck, so he's always got heads. And then when you extend it all the way out, the shaft tends to bend. However, you can bend it back the other way and it's still around. Yeah, this thing often gets this thing. And then a westward 4-to-1, 3/4 to 1 inch drive. Yeah, it's good to have a 4-to-1, in my opinion. I've always carried one. I used to have a snap-on one. It succumbed to the weather so bad that it had to be retired because they weren't warranting it anymore, and so I went to a westward. Oh, and then underneath here is actually a ball joint press, and it's on the very bottom because I don't use it that often. However, it's also a multi-purpose press. If we come here, this is called Pandora's box. This is where my funnels live and my triangle pail, which I've had for so long. It's got a hole in it right there, so you can only fill it up to there if it's flat. If it's tilting back this way, you can get it a bit higher. But yeah, this drawer is pretty messy. I do clean my funnels out before I use them though, however. So one day I'll have a nicer spot for all my funnels and all that shit, but until then, they do get a good cleaning before they get used. Okay, back to the bench. This, favorite thing on the truck. I don't know how guys have service trucks without a bench where you can hammer on shit. You know, kudos to those guys, man. I don't know how they do it. I need to have a work area. So since this truck is custom, built by myself, the outriggers are outriggers out of an old Hiab. I bought an old decrepit Hiab and cut it apart, built the bench, and then kind of another little structure down in here, and light buckets. They're just on there with 2 little welds on each side, so when they get rotten, because they will get rotten, it's just a zip, and then a weld, and I got brand new ones. Minimal amount of lights. The last thing I want to be doing is fixing lights that I don't need, but I need to have. I got a set of singles here. I do have a set of triples. However, I've stopped carrying them all the time because there's so little room between the leaf spring and the inside dual that they got to be on there so good and tight. By the time you actually get them on that good, you're so soaking wet, you want to go home anyways. You probably didn't even do a good job at that, and you wreck them. So I don't know how many sets of triples I've gone through on this truck. Now I just run the singles, and I really only run them on the steers, and I really only run them when I'm scared coming down. And this thing being 4-wheel drive and having the Detroit locker in the back, it's a bit of a billy goat, so it'll chew pretty good with a set of chains on the steers. And another thing is that when you come down and you got good traction on your steers and you skid your drives, you leave the road all shiny and spicy for the next guy. I have chewed so far into the bush, and with all the chains on to go to do a job, specifically needing my crane, and fired it up, and I have tore a line off with the chains on the way out there. So now I keep spare hoses for the crane. I mean, when I'm 4-wheel chewing like that means the snow is up to like here, like full diffs pushing. So to be a contractor up on Whistler Mountain, you need to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle. This plumbing here it's not the prettiest. There's a reason why this is spliced right there, because I made the hose just a little too short on both sides when I made this thing from the counterbalance valve, but we're not going for looks. We'll just hide that with the chains there. And then an 8-inch vise, fixed. Always run a fixed vise. I never run a indexing vise anymore. It's nice to just be able to really reef on it. I had an indexing vise until I had a cylinder in the vise. I had the 4-to-1 on it, and I woke up underneath the deck with ringing in my ears with this 4-to-1 and the broken vise and the cylinder rod in my lap. So something broke, something hit me in the head. I woke up under the truck. So from now, I just run a big 8-inch non-swivel vise. And like the swivel things wear out and you're trying to pull on stuff from the side. There's probably really good vices, but they don't seem to stay. Back here, we got a work light here. This shines nicely on the vise and then the rest of the deck, and it's kind of loose so you can position it where you want. The Grody Trilliants, I believe. Sitting in the back, there's a Vantage 400, Lincoln Vantage 400. That welder's been with me through a few service trucks now. If I'm doing like corks with a buddy or something like that and he's got a gas and I'm sitting right here and he's on the other side of the tracks, all I can hear is his welder. This thing's really quiet and it's super good on fuel, to the point where it runs out of fuel because I forget to fill it. Aluma reels, there's a ground and a stinger with a V stinger on there. Love the V stinger. Always grabs, grab big rods, grab small rods. It never sacks out, and I've had that thing for like 7 years. And then the top reel is remote, plus it's 120. So it's like an extension cord plus a remote. So I'll just string that thing out, and then I don't have to hop up onto the truck every time to adjust my amperage. Behind the welder is a stack of dunnage. There's a stack of 6x6s back there. Chain rack, several come-alongs, some old beat binders, oxygen and acetylene, and then there's also a place up there for shielding gas as well. Same, I don't always carry around the suitcase. So if I throw the suitcase in there, there's a spot for that gas up there. And then a full-size spare. Always run a full-size spare. You can use it for yourself or you can sell it to a customer, which I've done. This drawer is grease guns live down there. There's a battery-powered grease gun. There's a jug of coolant back there, and then these are the controls for the outriggers. They're manual. You got to pull them out. They got lots of power, and they're really quick. We have my crane. This crane has quite a story. I bought it off of a hillbilly guy out in Oregon, and a customer of mine actually went and picked him up, and the guy was quite the eccentric, liked to build his own guns. He was an old timer and he was kind of just getting out of it. And he told me that this is the strongest crane I've ever used, son. This is the strongest service truck crane I've ever used. And, it's an 8,000 pound crane, but he was not lying. Like that crusher bucket over there weighs 7,500 pounds and it'll flat stick it. I mean, it looks homemade. It's pretty ugly. And I look at this thing sometimes and I go, yeah, I bet you I could make that. It's been a really good crane. Remote controls, the receivers up there. If that fails, I can just hotwire the proportional solenoid to just fully on, and then I can just hotwire 12 volts to everything. If that fails, I can always manually push spools down and get it stowed. And if the hydraulics completely fail, I can put a wrench on the worm gear there, spin it back around to where I want it, pull the pressure transducer out, have it smack down onto the cab guard, coil up the line. So another huge redundancy. You can always find a way to stow this crane. I have needed to pull the pressure transducer once, and my God, it makes a mess of oil over the front of the truck, but at least you're going home. And then the crane structure I built myself. This is 1-inch plate, 1-inch plate, and then this is 4x4 by half HSS. And then it's all reinforced underneath here and then over through the back of the sub body of the truck and then into the outriggers. A buddy of mine, he had built his own service body years ago, and he built the crane structure, and he said, Alex, I built my crane structure because I was working in a mine, and they do a test. They have you hang out and then they check the flexion on your crane structure. He's like, so I overbuilt the shit out of the thing. I overbuilt this thing. This whole box weighs over 500 pounds. So, but it ain't moving. So looks kind of ugly. I think one day I'd like to put a door on that, and I can store stuff in there, probably like spill pads or whatever. It's probably like a good thing to store in there. Truck had a bucket on it, but I never had outriggers. So it's got this big sway bar that runs over top of the sub body. You can pick an ISX up over here without the outriggers down. This drawer here, we have power probe, cotter pins, grease nipples. There's a Deutz kit back there. ring terminals, butt connectors, fuses, copper washers, left-hand bits and other extractors, Deutz harnesses. I like to keep a lot of old pigtails. Like if you put in a new sensor, the sensor's bad, but the pigtail's still fine. I'll snip the pigtail, and they're really handy for your multimeter or whatever, or just having a harness for a rainy day. And then these guys back here, the tool you love to have but hate to use, and it's the tap extractor. It's in the back. You never want to have to bust this tool out, or at least I don't. Pretty must to have, you know. It actually works pretty good to a point. It's better than die grinding out a tap. Taps, I don't have to tell everybody out there that taps are hard, and you can't drill them, so you have to carbide them. That's why I also have in the cab, I got the little air pencil die grinder. Another tool, love to have, hate to use. In here we got air fittings, ORB, pipe, big ORF, small ORF, JIC, and flange. These are all caps and plugs. There's been times where, it's a solid 7-hour trip to go get a new hose. And when I'm on that type of work, usually what I'll do is I'll carry really long hoses. I'll carry like 3 or maybe 4 really long hoses with like popular sizes on them. That way, if you blow a hose this long, you can put a 20-foot hose on it and coil it up, and then that'll at least get you through the day. In here, we have another hammer. This is a 12-pounder. Again, not a tailor-made. This is just a 12-pound head with a 12-inch long handle. So the hammers are stashed everywhere around the truck, wherever they can fit. But yeah, this thing kind of just lives in here. This will be like garbage too, that doesn't really have another good home. Quick grab and go. This cabinet here, again, is a beware, as contents have probably shifted. Now we're good. Pry bars, chain wrench, another breaker bar. These older snap-on ones with the old handles. I'll grab this one before this one any day, just because I love the old school handles. They don't make those anymore. Just like having this one in my hand more than this one. They stopped making these ones like, I gotta say 2014, 2015, and then they went to this handle. And then as guys busted up these handles, they were getting, you were getting these handles, but it feels good in a guy's hand, This is just test leads. Here's the power probe. There's just a crappy load tester there. 1-inch gun, Blue Point 1-inch gun. That's actually a stethoscope. That I don't use that very often, but I have used it. It's pretty handy. Hydraulic test kit. So whips, gauges, running tees. Here's the induction heater. I've had it for years. It doesn't like to run off the inverter. Yeah, it doesn't like that. So I do have to run it off the welder. I think there was something in the pamphlet when I first got it, and I was reading it was saying that, if you're going to run this off of the inverter or some kind of lower power source, you must do this or be careful about whatever. But yeah, it likes to run off the welder way more than it runs off of the inverter. Maybe somebody else runs it off their inverter and they have better luck. Here we have more Brutus Signature Series drawer packs. Again, they're a little bit narrower so I can fit on the sides. So there's a lot of wrenches there on the sides. Bolt bin. This thing gets unstocked and restocked all the time. Right now it's kind of semi-stocked. I'm so bad with, I'm like, oh, a nut and a bolt that I've took off of something that it doesn't need anymore, and I'll just put that in my, that's kind of the Bush mentality. If I had more space for more nuts and bolts, I'd have all freshies, and I'd have metrics and standards all labeled out, but I'm kind of tight for space. So this one, again, there's random wires, there's some random parts really in there. So one thing that's super nice about T-handle drawers are these ones, the American Eagle ones are the same, but you can just pull it out. If you get something jammed in there, which happens all the time, especially if you're trying to jam way more tools in there that you have room for, you can just slide the drawer out and then click it back in and close it. Next drawer, we have some lifting equipment, pins that you can cut up, wedges. Got several wedges down there. Gotta have wedges. Gotta make things persuade. And this drawer down here is mostly for the hollow cylinder, press related. So these Cummins wrist pins, they're real handy for the 1-inch bar. You can just slide a bunch of these on. You don't have to thread your nut way down the bar. This all just looks like random crap, but man, I use this stuff all the time. And then fittings. This is like fittings that don't have a home, just random fittings. This is like the fittings that get welded to other fittings drawer to make it happen. On to the next cabinet here. Pretty much primarily welding stuff. All the low hydrogen rods go in these sealed cases here. So 332 carbons, 1/8, some 5P plus here. I carry like 332s and 1/8 6010 pipeliners. They're really kick-ass to carry around. If you really get in a jam and you need to do some downhill, these are your answers. So yeah, I always keep a couple of sleeves of that 5P plus in there. Here we have grinding discs, wire wheels, some hole saws. There's a short level back there, a handle for the drill, a string line. There's also a handle for the grinder in there too. Needle scaler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grinders back there. Mostly Makita. I love these Makita ones. I forget what the 9005B. This is like the same one my dad had when I was growing up, you know. And you can get these from KMS, and they're like probably the toughest and most cost-effective 5-inch grinder. And then a battery-powered Milwaukee one. You got to have a bunch of grinders, man, because those things meet their demise either through use or pure anger. The gouger, I don't even know what you call it, the handle or whatever the gouger thing is. There's another hammer, and then, oh, look at that, another wrench. Yeah, this one is, oh, look at that, shocking. It's modified. Had to have that 90 one day. So yeah, it's a 2 and 3/16 90, and then the big dog, the 1-inch snap-on. Again, it goes this way. That's that would have been getting something off, but you know, maybe it'll go this way again. Needless to say, it gets the snipe on it. The snap-on head. This thing's been really good, actually, super tough. Minus the handle. Well, the handle's tough. It just bends. That's all. Milwaukee transfer pump, and then the transfer pump hoses. I used it the other day to prime a fuel system. It actually sucked all the way from the tank, all the way through the filters, and then right to the injection pump. I haven't used a funnel in a long time, man. I love that thing. It's perfect. You can drain the oil, set that thing up in buckets, and then go and do something else. You can go and, you know, do filters. This is the worst and best thing on this truck. Compressor is not that great, and in the last few weeks it's gotten less great, but only in terms of CFM. That thing will always start. But I mean, that was like, I think I paid, you know, a couple $100 for that thing. And I've just kind of been doing that over the years. Like, this is the second compressor that's been on there, and they've all just been pretty subpar, but that'll be my next purchase. I want those VMAC G30s. I really like having everything separate from each other. I don't want to have my welder and my compressor hooked to one, because if one goes down, then you don't have the other one. I don't have a spare compressor, but I do have a spare welder. An older Lincoln SA250. You don't know how nice an older Lincoln welds until you weld with one. Just full DC. It's not rectified. So, yeah, pile of rags right there. Friday's coveralls still sitting there. Rain gear, there's a set of pants jammed in there too. This is a coat. There's a triangle kit. There's a first aid kit. Like I was saying, usually I'll have the spill pads here and Henry can have a nice bed. Henry's the dog. He rides with me. Yeah, he comes around, sits there, watches you if you're tries to clean your face. Here we have these Fabco lockouts, manual lockouts. Pretty nice feature to have. I don't think I'd buy them because they're super expensive, but the truck came with them, so they're really nice because when you're two-wheel driving it, the axle shafts, the front drive shaft, it's all stationary. It just makes parts last a lot longer. You just have to remember to, A, to unlock both of them, or lock both of them, or B, use them every once in a while, or else the U-joints get like stale or whatever. You know, they kind of, yeah, they like to be moved every once in a while. So, and anybody that drives 19.5 tires, you drive 19.5 tires pumped up, there is nothing rougher on washboard than those little tires. These 22.5s, I'll air them down to 45, 50 PSI. I can be in overdrive going over the Hurley in this thing. Like it eats washboard way better. It's a lot more air and rubber. It's like, you know, a little bit more suspension. Like this truck doesn't even have shocks. It didn't come from the factory with shocks. Like the suspension doesn't do much. It's pretty rough, like fully pumped up, but when you air down, it's a smooth ride, man. So here, batteries. I mean, usually the batteries just sit on the floor right there. Here's the battery charger. Radio. In here is where my meter is. There's a laptop. There's a automotive scanner, which is actually, I don't use it too much as an automotive scanner, but it's a lab scope, which I've actually been, the last few weeks, I've actually used it several times. It's been really good for troubleshooting pulse width. Headlamp, a set of earmuffs, welding helmets, and some welding caps. And then this is my custom welding mask. It's got one of those pancake hood bits in it. I'll just onto like a pipeliner mask with a flip front. Everybody knows how annoying back glare is through your mask, and this thing completely eliminates back glare. This is kick ass. This is the best modded welding helmet I've ever used. I've fucking this thing. My custom green parking brake knob there. My girlfriend got me that for, I think, Valentine's Day or something. Love it. Third favorite thing on the truck. And then genuine vinyl wood grain shifter cover. A buddy of mine found me this at one of those big truck stops in Texas. It's a little long, but I love it. Cabs are pretty small in these internationals. If you've ever sat in one, they're pretty tight, especially if you're trying to change your shocks in minus 40. Be a bit of a wrestling match trying to get your boots on and off there, but it heats up quick, stays hot. It's got a good furnace. Yeah, does the trick. The air filter for the compressor. This thing fell off. The stock one fell off and the Tapella or something like that. I had to make this. This is just some generic air filter I had kicking around, but it actually works really well. And it's been on there over the Hurley. You know, it's on there good, and actually works pretty good, and it's sealed up really well. So the other ones are just falling off. So this time it's on there pretty good. The truck used to be white. My dad and I painted it. He did most of it because I was injured at the time, so I was just kicking around on a wheelchair. I ran this truck for a few years white, and it was like, so there was like black marks all over it. There was paint. They had like painted this, spray painted over the old logos, and then there was all like writing on it from the auction. And once that shit bakes in the sun, it's on there. I was at the card lock one day, and this guy pulls up and he goes, "What is this thing? What does this thing do? Looks like a fishing boat on wheels." I was like, "Oh, it kind of does look like a fishing boat." You know, it was all just like real dirty. Yeah, but it's a big job to paint. A real painter would probably wouldn't like the fact that it's white right here, right? But you know, we're not winning any beauty contests here. But you know, I built the truck for reliability, redundancy, and everywhere that I could kind of put it in. No computers. Doesn't even have a shut-off solenoid. You gotta shut it off manually. In theory, there's no reason why it shouldn't be running unless it's really broken or it's out of fuel. And then one thing I wanted to mention is my go-to all the time tools that are always in my pocket is my thumb wrench and my Leatherman Wave Plus. What I go to the most. I am a huge go for it with this first. And if that fails, then I'll go back to the truck and get a wrench. And then this thing, you got pliers, wire strippers, O-ring picks. Got a Phillips and a flathead right there. I mean, I feel lost without the Leatherman, man. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm Alex with Sioux Valley Diesel, and this is my truck.
Thanks for sticking around for the full truck tour. You want to check out some other truck tours? Got some links in the bio description, all the older ones. If you have some cool truck that you want us to come film, you want the media guys to come film, whatever you got, media@tekamohd.com. Send them an email. They will film anything. Legitimately anything. We're excited to announce the upcoming launch of the Tekamo podcast. Join us while we chat with industry professionals and heavy-duty mechanics. If you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the industry, there's something to be gained by listening to this podcast. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok to be notified when it releases. If you'd like to be on one of the podcasts, reach out by filling out the Join Our Network form. Link in the description.